So today we're going to go over some more frequently asked questions about our shocks, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So we ask a bunch of questions when we replace an order, rider weight, a passenger weight, luggage weight, how much time you're riding, and every different style. The reason why we ask all of that stuff is so we can actually set the shocks up for you and how you ride. So we've got different methods and have done different testing to know exactly what preload and how that shock needs to be set up for all of these different applications. And we just want to know more about you and your ride, so that way we can make those settings for you. These shocks work for a very wide range of adjustability or different people's weights and riding conditions. So we just take that guesswork out of it for you. That way you ain't got to spend a bunch of time trying to fine tune them for your setup. So we make the shocks for every Harley family model except Softails, and that does include Trikes. And all late models, from 93 up on all of them, and some of them back to 92. Anything previous to 90, 92, 93, we actually would like to get a call in just to verify fitment. But basically everything besides Softails, including Trikes, from 93 up. And for those models, for the Dynas, Sportsters, and Baggers, we offer 11, 12, and 13-inch shocks. In our NEXGEN shocks, it's only 12s and 13s for those models. For the Trikes, we offer 13 and 14-inch. So those are the different sizes available. So everybody asks why these shocks are self-adjusting or how. It's magic, basically. No, there's actually what we call an inertia valve inside of there that has a spring that helps it. So if the body of the bike moves, then everything moves and that valve will not open. But if the tire needs to stay in contact with the ground, then it's going to extend. The bike stays still, the tire will extend to the ground. And if it needs to go faster than the valving will allow, then this weighted valve up here at the top will actually want to stay in place. Objects in motion want to stay in motion. Objects, stopped want to stay stopped. So when that comes down, that valve will actually open. And basically it's a bypass valve, but it's a lot more complicated than that. We've got springs that help it to get the exact inertia activation point that it needs. And then also there's a bypass valving within there as well that is specifically for the Harley family that you're buying your shocks for. And so in this, if that valve needs to open based off of speed of the actual rebound, it will open. If you don't need it to open, it isn't going to open because your tire's not moving fast enough. And that's how it adjusts itself to the road that you're on. So that's how they're self-adjusting. Most of the other shocks, they may have a clicker or a knob to move it, and they're adjusting rebound with a needle valve. It's just a bypass valve. Ours is an active valve, not stationary like most of the others. That's good that question was next, because what I just described in this inertia valve is what makes them better for the most part. There are other things that we do, of course. We do rigorous testing. Every shock that we release is dyno tested before it goes out. We're just constantly evolving, trying to, make the best shock that we can. So in my opinion, the inertia valve and how we make that work for your bike, what makes them better than other options out there. But there's a multitude of things, we just use quality parts in it. They have a lifetime warranty. It's just a quality product. They have a hard anodized body. We use the spherical bearings. They got 4 inches of travel. That's the most of anybody out there as far as I'm aware of. Another thing that makes these special is almost everything that we can is made here in the United States. Almost everything is made here in-house. But there are certain items that we do get. We don't anodize them in-house, but that it is done in the U.S. by U.S. citizens. And the springs, again, we don't make those, but they are actually made in the U.S. All the way down to the circlips that hold everything in place. I actually sourced all of that stuff from United States sources. Now, the one thing that isn't United States sourced and I'm still looking for one and open for one, but I just couldn't find a U.S. source for the springs. The main spring that's not here right now, the main spring body. We actually get those from the UK, and they actually run tighter specifications. A lot of people don't realize that a coilover spring, or a spring like we're using here, has a plus or minus 10% tolerance. So if you get a 150-pound spring, 10% of that's 15 pounds. So it could be 15 pounds to the negative or positive side. And that's just a standard of, of spring manufacturers. Well, the European company that we're working with, they hold a plus or minus 5% tolerance. And that just allows us to better make sure that we have our settings specifically set up for you. It would be impossible to be sure that we're setting it up properly for you if the tolerances were that far out from one spring to the next. So a shock is, technically O-rings, everything like that. They are a wear item. Most companies will say, 20, 30,000 miles and it'll be rebuilt. I mean, we've got some out there that's, 70 and 80,000 that haven't been rebuilt and are still fine. That being said, there's always, cases where, an O-ring fails or something like that. And, that's the same with every company. We have a very low failure rate, but if there is a failure, we always take care of it, and we have a lifetime warranty to handle that. But ours, 50 to 60,000, you should be good to go. And they, 60,000, maybe start thinking about a rebuild. But I mean, we've got them out there that are even older than that are still performing perfectly. If it ever does need to be rebuilt, the great thing is that's covered under our warranty. You just send them in. If you ever need them to be rebuilt, we'll get it taken care of for you and send it back to you. This is literally the last pair of shocks that you'll ever have to buy for your Harley. I've asked a lot of people this, that knew a lot about shocks, stuff like that, and they didn't know. So it isn't necessarily something we get asked a lot. It's just something that a lot of people are unaware of. And it's pretty interesting, I think, is the real reason, or one of the biggest reasons for nitrogen inside of a shock is when that shock body, like when the shock compresses under compression, you're actually shoving more of that shock shaft into the can. Oil is non-compressible. So if there was no nitrogen in there and it was just filled with oil and sealed, it would just blow a seal or explode. Something has to be able to compress and offset the volume of the shaft that's going into the shock. So that's what, and ours are separated. So we've got a divider cup where nitrogen would be above. So when that shock travels up and there's more of the shaft in there, it offsets, it compresses the nitrogen because it can't compress the oil. And now there's more overall volume in the shock, so it has to compress it. So it compresses that nitrogen up, and that is the biggest reason for nitrogen in a shock. There are other, reasons for it too. You can add nitrogen pressure, and when it does, when it travels up in there, the pressure will spike, and therefore it can push back a little bit harder and provide some additional downforce or additional rebound force to the travel of the shock. But that's really a secondary thing, and you could use, there are better ways to do that than that, but the nitrogen can have some more pushback depending on how much nitrogen pressure you have in there. And then lastly, you don't want cavitation to happen within the tube. So when the shock is bouncing back and rebounding very fast, that nitrogen is actually pushing the cap back down. And without that, it could actually create a vacuum within inside the oil chamber that would then, pop once it slowed down. And that's cavitation, and cavitation is bad on everything. It actually wears away at aluminum, all the seals and all of that. So it's to not prevent, because you can't really prevent cavitation, but it's to minimize it. So that's what the nitrogen does in the shock. So most of you'll know all of your weights, riding characteristics, just have all that information that we were talking about handy. Then you can go to our website, go to your make and model, go to suspension, go to the shocks, you can enter the information in there, place your order online. You can give us a phone call or you can shoot us an email. and we'll get your order taken that way. And while we do have to get them packaged, set for your specific riding style and your bike and all of that, we usually get them out within 1 business day of when the order is placed. So if you have any questions at all, shoot us an email, leave a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, and y'all ride safe out there.